Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one would have expected that after our second death from COVID, there would have been a level of temperance, a level of understanding, a level of sadness in this chamber. And one would have expected the powers that be to exercise a little more caution in their utterances, a little more sympathy for the people who lost their lives, a little more humanity in that people have lost their lives. People have died. The people who have died have families. The people who have died have people who will miss them. And we would have put aside the politics, put aside what we heard yesterday, and this morning we come with a new spirit. Basically come to this honorable house and make a genuine effort to have some level of non-partisan discussion, Mr. Speaker. I haven't spoken this morning. It's the first time I'm speaking. I didn't speak before. So one would expect, Mr. Speaker, that after what we heard yesterday, was, to say the least, Mr. Speaker, not even worthy of response. The same old thing will come after every discussion. After I speak today, I'm going to hear the same thing I heard yesterday. But, Mr. Speaker, a few things I think I should clear. Number one is about the Public Accounts Committee, the PAC. That discussion goes, oh, you can get information from the PAC. Mr. Speaker, the PAC is not an organ of the Constitution. The PAC operates under Section 68 of the Standing Orders of this Honorable House. And I know you are familiar, Mr. Speaker, but for the people who deliberately say these things in order to give the false impressions, if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, do you mind if I read Section 68 of Standing Orders, or you are well familiar with it? I could thank you, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, you hear these things, and this morning, the Prime Minister says, oh, people are listening to you. Yeah. You hear these things, Mr. Speaker. And then, when you hear these things, people will, it's a constitution. People Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 68, the Standing Orders of this Honorable House. The Public Accounts Committee shall have the duty of examining the accounts showing the appropriation of the sums granted by the legislature to meet public expenditure. Such other accounts as may be referred to the committee by the House or under any law. The report of the Director of Audit on any such accounts. That is the rule of the Public Accounts Committee. So when you have people glibly come here and say, you are chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, you can find out what you want, Mr. Speaker. This is just another instance of bending the truth for political reasons. NIMAC, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the member from Denry North, was fired by the United Workers' Party, was fired by the United Workers' Party because when you... Point of order, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, the member is responding to issues that happened in the previous debate in a new debate. There's a new bill before the House. How is the member going to respond without even making reference to the bill that is before us and talking about what was spoken about after he made his contribution in the first debate on the previous bill?
Honorable Member, just to respond to you, Just to respond to you, Honourable Member, I am taking note of what the member is doing, but sometimes you just need to see if that is the basis upon which he's setting up his argument. So for the...
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am setting up, my argument is based on the fact that I have no power or authority to find out from the government things that they do in the financial management of the country unless I do it in this house, and I cannot do it through the PAC. That's the basis of my bringing on the PAC, Mr. Speaker. But NIMAC, Mr. Speaker, this morning, Mr. Speaker, NIMAC, the member for Soufrière, in his usual attacks on me, made a point about NIMAC. But if he doesn't know, let me tell you something, Mr. Speaker. When the member for Castries North was leader of the opposition,
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on a
fired him, Mr. Speaker, because he went to a NIMAC meeting.
Honourable Member,
Mr. Speaker,
again he's indicating a point of order.
this is a debate that took place on a bill that has passed, and the member is responding to issues in the bill of the previous debate. The motion of the previous debate was closed and passed. So if new matters come up that the member wants to respond to, he can. But the only person who has spoken on the new bill motion that is before the House is the Prime Minister. The member for Soufrière has not spoken.
Honourable members, let me rule on this matter. Member is the first presenter on this resolution. It is in my purview to allow the member to move into his debate, to make his presentation on this matter. Everybody may have a one style or the other. I'm just trying to assess where the member is, Honourable Member. One style or the other as to the way they make their presentation. I'm going to so assess it, and as I said, I will so take it out if I have to.
Mr. Speaker, I'm referencing to the COVID.
Let me put it there. Yes, but you must remember now that we are now on the resolution for the airport.
Yes,
so
Mr. Speaker.
Whatever presentation that you make, it must come back to this. So I'm not telling you don't take your style of how to do it, but it must be tied to that motion. Continue, Honourable.
Mr. Speaker, we are borrowing $200 million in times of COVID, Mr. Speaker, and in times when there will be a NIMAC meeting on Friday. And Mr. Speaker, I attended one NIMAC meeting, and I allowed a representative of mine who I have full faith and confidence in, who is qualified. He's a quality surveyor. He's a social affairs expert. He deals with social matters, Mr. Speaker. He attended the meeting on my behalf. I have full confidence in him because I believe in these matters he is competent and he should attend for me. And in my role, I have the freedom to ask anyone to attend any meeting on my behalf. When the member for Castries North was the leader of the opposition, he attended a NIMAC meeting with the then Prime Minister, and he was fired because the members of the United Workers' Party thought that he should have brought somebody with him. We do not behave like that in our party, and our party, I have confidence in every member of our party, and I will, at any time I figure it's right and proper, will ask any member of my party to represent me at any meeting. So, Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of order.
Let's go to you.
Member,
the old fire king. Let's go to you.
Honourable Member.
The member is misleading the House.
Yeah, that bullying.
How can you say that the member was fired because he attended a NEMAC meeting? If the member cannot prove what he's saying, then he needs to withdraw. The House is not a place to speculate about what decisions that was made.
The amount of things you say already?
No, Mr. Speaker, this information cannot go down in the record as a statement of fact that the member was fired because he did not, or because he attended a NEMAC meeting, and that's going to go down in the records of the House. The member for Castries needs to be able to substantiate the information that he is giving there.
Look at the member for Barbados.
Honorable members, honorable members. Honorable member. To say that the member was fired may be a very strong language to use.
He was relieved of his duties.
And to say that he was fired because of attending an NEMAC meeting is a very strong,
it is, Mr. Speaker.
Very strong language. If you're going to keep it, I would suggest that somehow you rephrase that statement.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Speaker. It is my understanding. It is my understanding that the member for Castries North, it is my understanding, when he was leader of the opposition, attended a NEMAC meeting with the then Prime Minister, and he was relieved of his duties by the then United Workers' Party because he was instructed that he should not have gone to any meeting without taking along with him a member of the party.
Mr. Speaker, standing in point of order, I refuse to accept that explanation. He has no idea what conversations took place between the then leader of the opposition and the party, and I can say that categorically what he said is false.
Honorable members, like I said earlier to the leader of the opposition earlier, there are things that members can stand and refute. The rephrasing of the statement, I believe, is palatable, and that is fine. Now let's move on, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Get to the...
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are borrowing $202 million for the expansion of the Hiwanora International Airport, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is actually a guarantee. And this guarantee adds to the national debt of our country. Some time ago, I quoted from a World Bank report that said that borrowings from SLASPA were not subject to a guarantee. Again, I was told that I was misleading the House, and that was not true. Today, in this honorable House, the Minister of Finance stood and he said that this is a guarantee by the government of St. Lucia for SLASPA. What it means, Mr. Speaker, is in effect, it's a contingent liability, and the taxpayers of this country are burdened with a $202 million debt at the time of COVID, Mr. Speaker. At the time when the UK airports have had to act their construction by $1 billion because of COVID. And I want to quote from a document called the Construction News, and it says, "Nobody knows how this will pan out. There is talk of a return of no return to normality until 2024 to 2025. What is the point of building a new terminal or extension now, let alone a new runway?" That is speaking about Heathrow Airport in London, Mr. Speaker. My point, Mr. Speaker, is that the government should at least wait and rethink its position while people in St. Lucia are out of work, while children in St. Lucia are losing their schooling while they wait for e-books, while the respiratory hospital is in a state of disrepair, waiting to be repaired. Well, Mr. Speaker, the COVID spike is increasing, and we know here from our own non-scientific reasons, we can stay in this honorable house and say why the spike is increasing. Absolutely no scientific reason, no scientific information. But we can sit in this honorable house and say it is increasing because of X, because of Y, with no proof. There has been no medical expert. There has been no medical person who has gone on the outside and say the reason why there is a spike in COVID. But we can stand in this honorable house and to play cheap politics, blame X and Y for the spread of COVID. And this is the time, Mr. Speaker, we are borrowing $202 million. Mr. Speaker, our point is that the government's priorities are wrong. We have no idea where the construction of the airport is. We were told that the Taiwanese will lend us $100 million. And we were told that the security for that borrowing will be the airport development tax, which is in the lockbox, and in that lockbox, that will be used to repay the loan. And the proceeds of that lockbox comes from the airport development tax. Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia is the only country that believes that tourism will return to its levels before 2024, 2023. We are the only country in the world that believes that. There is no other prime minister in the region who has stood up in any public place and made that point except the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. The Bahamas, that is the mecca of tourism in the region. The Bahamas are very concerned about the future of the tourism industry. The only country, the only island in the world that is so confident that tourism will bounce back to allow us to be able to repay a loan of $202 million in St. Lucia. Based on what, Mr. Speaker? Absolutely no scientific reasoning for it. Just on the speculation or the idea that they know more than anybody else. Mr. Speaker, this government must tell us in detail what is the arrangement as far as the airport is concerned. How much will the airport cost? Was there a tender for the piling company? How will the Taiwanese loan, when will the Taiwanese loan kick in? And when will the guarantee for SASPA kick in? Because the business model in which they developed the airport, that business model has changed because the world has changed. Because tourism is not the same as it was when the business model was created. How will the business model be adjusted because of the realities of the industry and realities of the world based on the COVID situation? Have they adjusted the business model? Have they created any sensitivity analysis into what will happen or what if situation? Because the business model that developed the $202 million from the banks and the $100 million, etc., from Taiwan was built on a particular model. Have they adjusted that model to take that into consideration? Mr. Speaker, it speaks about cash security. If you look at the motion, you'll say it says, in the interest, 4.5% on the cash security provided, Mr. Speaker. What is the cash security about? Isn't it important for the Honorable House to know what the cash security is about? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that the term sheet changed. So I must just come and hear the Prime Minister's term sheet and believe the Prime Minister. And just take it because he said it. He said the term sheet changed, the term sheet changed. You see, the Prime Minister could not put the term sheet as a document of the House. So we can see why it changed, we can see why it changed, and we can see why that has come here for a second time. I mustn't ask these questions because he said so. And because he has power, he can stand up and say whatever he wants. I cannot ask him that question, Mr. Speaker. And I must be abused because I asked that question. Shouldn't the term sheet of the loan be a document of the House? Why? I just have to take the Prime Minister's word for it.
So what are you doing then? You're not asking the question?
Mr. Speaker, we have to ask ourselves, Mr. Speaker, what is the cash security about? What's it about? Where will the cash, what's the cash security? What's it? Is it part of the logbox? Yes, they ask, what is in the logbox? I'm asking today, what's in the logbox? How much is in the logbox today? Not how much is there last year, how much is it today? How much is in the logbox today? I need to find out, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will not be quieted. I will not be made to shut up. Never. In spite of what they say or do or try, I will not be made to shut up in this honorable House. So you can abuse me, you can do whatever you want, I will not be kept quiet in this honorable House, Mr. Speaker. My 25 years, which I'm proud of, that the people of Cassis East gave me, Mr. Speaker, they sent me in this honorable House to make a contribution, and I will make it, and I will be heard. Mr. Speaker, I have to ask the question, was there any tendering for the airport? Was there any tendering for the airport, Mr. Speaker? Was there any public tender in the newspapers of St. Lucia? Was there any public tendering in the newspapers of St. Lucia that the public now is being asked to guarantee $202 million? Was there any public tendering? Did we see in any newspaper? And Mr. Speaker, if there was in a newspaper, I stand corrected. If there was in any newspaper public tendering for works that will come to $200 million plus $100 million, Mr. Speaker, I stand corrected. But I have to ask these questions. I must ask them, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask, Mr. Speaker, in the new plans for the airport terminal, was there any consideration that airports are changing because of COVID? Are you aware that right now in airport construction, I have a plan for HIE, which when we were going under the PPP arrangement, that plan was prepared. I forgot to bring it to Mr. Speaker. Do you know right now, in the construction of new airports now, there are what is called decontamination chambers. There are all sorts of different technologies because of COVID, Mr. Speaker. It's only in St. Lucia we believe we have a government that was well prepared for COVID, you know. Only St. Lucia, no else. The whole world wasn't prepared for St. Lucia except St. Lucia. The whole world was not prepared for COVID except St. Lucia. They are the only ones who are prepared because they are bright and they know love St. Lucia. They were prepared, Mr. Speaker. The great United States, yesterday in Dallas, Texas, they had to order some new mugs for dead people, frozen refrigerators as mugs. But here we were prepared here. And when I make the point that we have to constantly understand that we were not prepared and we have to get ourselves in a state of preparation, I'm abused. Mr. Speaker, do you know as we speak, the 100-something cases of COVID in this country, we may be running out of space for them at the hospital? Mr. Speaker, when I said you weren't prepared, we were talking about quarantine at Rhode Island. That's what we were speaking about, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we as representatives of the people must face the reality that we were not prepared for COVID how it is today. We weren't prepared. We did not know that we would come from 21 to 100 and something in a matter of weeks. We didn't know that. We're not blaming anybody for that. We've not blamed no member of the opposition. And when we talk about, because we didn't come to a meeting of the House where the Bar Association, the Hotel and Tourism Association, the Hotel and Tourism Association was accused of being bribed. The president was accused of being bribed by a member of this government, by a member of the opposition, and no one ever said to the minister, you should not say that. No one. No one said, you should not make that accusation against the president of the SHTA. And that is the reason why we do not support the government for COVID. Because we thought that there should be more consultation on an important bill, and we walked out. That's the only reason why we didn't support the government on COVID, Mr. Speaker. When every public statement I have made...
Come back, Mr. You're trying to move away.
Mr. Speaker, I believe in equality.
I'm not telling you, I'm just saying.
And I hope, Mr. Speaker, we get equal treatment, Mr. Speaker. Every public statement I made, I've said to the government that we will get the support of the opposition as far as COVID is concerned. We've never accused the government, ever, Mr. Speaker. But on July the 5th, on July the 6th, on July the 6th on Blazing, and on July the 6th on his Facebook page, the Prime Minister said we're getting ready for elections. He said elections are soon. So who is talking about preparation for elections? He is the one who can call elections. On July the 6th on Blazing Radio, he said elections are soon. And on June the 6th on his Facebook page, he said elections will be here. And they want to try to make St. Lucia great again. But he can say that. He is the Prime Minister. He is the one who calls elections, but we must not prepare. I mean, what kind of logic is that, Mr. Speaker? He can make this statement, but we mustn't prepare. Mr. Speaker, the point, Mr. Speaker, is that we understand that if the uncertainty in traveling at this point, the uncertainty with traveling at this point, Mr. Speaker, we have to ask questions when expenditure is being incurred, Mr. Speaker. We have to. We have to, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have to ask questions when you think that the priorities of the government are not right, Mr. Speaker. We have to ask these questions, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if we're talking about diversifying the economy around tourism.
Honorable members.
We talk about diversifying the economy around tourism, Mr. Speaker. Hotel Chocolat in Soufrière. I don't like to come here, Mr. Speaker, and boast. So I let them try to insult me. I let them try to, because they get kicks by doing that. They get kicks. They feel happy. They feel happy. But Mr. Speaker, Hotel Chocolat in Soufrière. I'm the one who negotiated it together with Ignatius Jean and Felix Finisterre. Hotel Chocolat, where we created the merger between tourism and agriculture. So we know about that. That's nothing new for us. We don't want to do it. And Hotel Chocolat, where they are now, is to create that nexus between the two. So you think I don't understand these things, these issues? But when they come and try to insult you, Mr. Speaker, this government never takes responsibility for anything. And they accuse other people of not taking responsibility. They come here, Mr. Speaker, and they behave as if they found St. Lucia in a mess, a chaos, chaotic, things were bad, and they had a savior, they had a great managers. Mr. Speaker, the evidence does not show that. The evidence is only in their mind. The evidence does not show that this country was in the chaos that this government pretends it was. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about airports. Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying to you, Mr. Speaker, is if this government believes that they should not rethink, I'm not saying stop, rethink. Wait a while. Let's see what's happening to COVID. let's see the vaccine will work. But from here alone, they already know that the vaccine will work, you know. They have some bright fellows around them. I don't understand them, you know. They have some geniuses from around on that part. They already know the vaccine will work. And they know already that the vaccine will work and tourism will get back. They know it inside there, you know. Brilliant guys, brilliant minds. Because they want to believe that that is what's necessary to win the next general elections. So they call you out first before you call them. They call you out. What they do is they shout it first. They say, you do it, you do it, you do it. Like speaking about saying things about general election speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government has paid operatives on the radio, on a program, daily playing politics, daily. Paid up ministers call that program, and politics. But no, they're so good. They know nothing about the country, and want to get COVID alone. And these guys are so bad. You're wicked. And every day, they're paid operatives on the radio, and they call the station, yes, and they play as if it's something that they're doing. Oh yes, Mister, how you doing? Hypocrites. Keeping it real, but keeping it real every day. Pierre, Hilaire, there, every day. But no, we playing politics. Mr. Speaker, I can say, Mr. Speaker, that you tried things that have failed, Mr. Speaker. You tried that have failed. They said that you had to desal the rivers in Bexon and there'll be no flooding. Bexon flooded. I can't blame nobody for that. But Bexon flooded. Mark flooded. But it's my fault. They came and they said, you only used to have $1 million for this whole thing. Now we have 3 million, 4 million. Bexon flooded. You think I'll blame anybody for that? I will not come here and say it's because the government didn't do what is right, Bexon flooded. I'll never say that. But the fact is, Bexon flooded. But even as us, because of y'all can't plan. Y'all have no planning. Y'all don't know what's right. Mr. Speaker, that is the double standards and the double dealings we have in this country. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask, Mr. Speaker, again, Mr. Speaker, did we look at the effect of COVID on the airport construction? Did we measure the uncertainty of travel? Did we change our business model? Are we aware that what we used to collect, Mr. Speaker, let's get to the idea of not collecting the airport development tax. We never denied that we stopped collecting it. We never denied it. At the time, it was the thinking that unless construction had begun, the tax had only been paid. That was the thinking at the time. We never denied it. We never came here and said, boy, if we didn't do it, or it's because of you all we do it. We didn't deny it, Mr. Speaker. We took responsibility for our actions. Collectively, we took responsibility for our actions, Mr. Speaker. If the government believes that that was not a good move, okay. But we have a right to say that we believe that the PPP was a better option. Why can't we say that? And why are we looking, Mr. Speaker, this government, in terms of loans, they have a very simple formula. If the world had worked so simply, the world have absolutely no problems, you know. Oh, we have a dedicated revenue stream. So the whole world's a stage, and men and women, many actors. So simple. It's only the bright people here that know about dedicated revenue streams. Nobody else in the world knows that except those here. Nobody else, Mr. Speaker. So you have a dedicated revenue stream for the airport. So that's it. So to say nothing, because we have a dedicated revenue stream, Mr. Speaker. So we are the only ones who know that here. Mr. Speaker, the revenue streams are not static. They are dynamic. They are ebbs and flows. One day they're high, another time they're low, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, do not pretend that you're the only one who knows about revenue streams. If revenue streams was so easy, there would have been no IMF, there would have been no structural adjustment programs, there's nothing like that, because there'd be revenue streams. But when we ask the question, Mr. Speaker, when we ask the question, is have you done the necessary sensitivity analysis on that revenue stream? Mr. Speaker, in that loan, Mr. Speaker, the cash security provided, I do not know where the cash security is coming from. It could be coming from the CIP funds, could be coming from the National Economic Fund. I still don't know how much money is in that fund. I know that the payments that are made on the CIP for bonds, which can be used as a cash security, these bonds are still debt. Whether they're debt in the short run or the long run, they are debt. They are on the debt profile of the country. So these bonds, whether they used in exchange for short term, I'm talking about the cash security, Mr. Speaker, on the loan. That's what I'm speaking about. These bonds that we use, the money we got from these bonds in the CIP, it is said that we're using them nice and straight and professional. We are using them to translate, to change short-term money into long-term money, Mr. Speaker. But they are debt. You still owe it. You have to pay it back. You have to pay it back, Mr. Speaker. So the fact is, it is a debt. So why are you denying it's a debt? It's a debt, Mr. Speaker. It's in part of the debt profile of the government. So I must raise it. I have to raise it. I have to raise it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are speaking about repayment of cash security. And they made a big hue and cry. And some of them tried to repeat it. That, oh, we're speaking about confidence in the economy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these things, treasury bills, bonds, they are traded differently. Some people buy it locally, some people buy it on the regional securities market. And on the regional securities market is a function of the regional situation. That's what it is. Very simple. Trading on the regional security market is a function of the regional situation in the country, in the region. So if one country is in problems, it has an effect on the regional security market. That is no, you don't have to be, that's nothing to be political about. If you're on the regional security market, so if St. Kitts has a default, or Antigua has a default, or Jamaica has a default, it will impact on you because the confidence in the regional security market has decreased because one country is in default. So your ability to buy and sell on that market is altered because of what's happening in the region, Mr. Speaker. That's all I said. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to deal with anybody, you know. I want to speak about the facts, Mr. Speaker. But they only want to deal with people. Their position, I'll deal with you, I'll deal with you. When they go, they high five. Hey, I dealt with them, I dealt with them. That's not about dealing, Mr. Speaker. That's about people's lives and COVID. No, it's not about dealing with anybody. It's about people's lives. It's about using the resources of the country to save us from the situation that we face with COVID. So scoring points to deal with me. I'm not dealing, I don't want to be dealt with. That's the whole object of this exercise, to deal with people. Mr. Speaker, I say again, Speaker, that the government has chosen its path as far as the airport is concerned. They've chosen their path, that is their path. But it is still the view of the opposition that the government, at least at this time, should rethink its position. Not to stop it, pause. Pause and let's see what is happening in the world. Let us get a more holistic view as to the effects of COVID. Let us not try to deal with people and get short-term political gain playing for the gallery. Let us look at the facts. Let us, in a reasoned and a seasoned way, discuss the issues as they relate to borrowing, as they relate to guarantees, as they relate to COVID, Mr. Speaker. And let us come to a realization that the world will never be the same as it was before. It will never be the same, Mr. Speaker. This COVID crisis is with us, and even though they say St. Lucia was the only country that was prepared, no one was prepared for COVID. No one knew what would happen to COVID. COVID is a work in progress. Everybody is trying. There are only 3 established principles as far as COVID is concerned. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and social distancing. These are the only 3 things that the world has settled as far as COVID is concerned. Anything else is speculation and trying. Mr. Speaker, before I end, I want to offer my condolences to my colleague, my friend. We run elections together for the St. Lucia Labour Party, Oswald Wilkinson Latcher, Mr. Speaker. He passed. We are very saddened by his passing away, Mr. Speaker. I want to wish his family. It is very unsettling, some of the things that are written on Facebook. But I really want to offer my sincere condolences, Mr. Speaker, to Comrade Latcher and Silas and their sons, Mr. Speaker, on the death of Wilkie. And also the gentleman who died yesterday, his name is not being mentioned. I want to offer my sincere condolences for them. And I want to say that let us try to rethink our position. Let us try to have a little more humility. Let us try to stop wanting, because you never know, Mr. Speaker. You never know when the hour cometh. We may be strong, we may be powerful, we may be in government, we may be able to abuse our power, but you never know when the hour cometh. It cometh for me, cometh for everybody else. So I hope, Mr. Speaker, that as we reflect on these situations, we can understand that the time is right for us to pause, think about our situation, and see if we can make this country a better place for each one of us. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.